a new look of fashion retail, embracing the innovation to accelerate the future of fashion and lifestyle. Please join me in welcoming our speakers and our moderator. He is Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Lacoste. Please welcome Rajesh Jain. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rajesh Jain. He is founder and Managing Director, Kazo Fashions. A warm welcome to Deepak Agarwal, who will be joining us online. He is Chief Executive Officer, Pepe Jeans, London. Please welcome Manish Kapoor. Come on, can we have a round of applause? He is Deputy Chief Executive Officer, Pantaloons Aditya Birla Fashions Limited. A warm welcome to Suraj Bhatt. Let's hear it for the co-founder and Chief Executive Officer, Spiker Lifestyles, Sanjay Bakharia. He is Director, Samsonite South. Please welcome Narendra Pratap Singh. And moderating the session is the Chief Revenue Officer, Omni from Arvind Internet. Please welcome Tapan Acharya. And online joining us will be Deepak Agarwal, founder and managing director, Kazo Fashions.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for me to host such an esteemed panel. My equals, my betters, sitting here completely hands-on with their brands and have withered something which is not seen in the last 100 years and have withered it successfully. So first of all, I'd like to congratulate all of them and congratulate all of us here also to have withered this and being able to sit in person and have a conversation. So I'm entrusted to moderate this panel, and it'll consider a lot of retail trends. I'm just taking out my mobile phone, not to check emails, just to take out some of the points which I have made, to take this discussion forward. And the fashion has completely changed, lifestyle has completely changed, the consumer demand is completely changed, and the pandemic has accelerated the pace of innovation. We all know that. And a lot is also backed by the country's diaspora. As we know that 65% of India is below 35 years of age. So there is a natural propensity to consume, which is in the people here. So for this panel discussion, first of all, I want to spearhead and little bit open it up, and I'm going to ask each of the opinions. And let me start with Rajesh first. So Rajesh, now we've seen a trend during the pandemic and post-pandemic, and it's like swinging of a pendulum. And the consumer trends have evolved, they've changed, as well as you've used technology. So what has been and what do you see now, and how do you see the trend going forward?
Thank you, Tapas. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So during pandemic and post-pandemic, we saw several changes. However, for the purpose of this discussion, I would like to keep it limited to the relevant part only. So if we see what happened during pandemic, first of all the physical stores shut down, completely locked down. And obviously the customers were very scared to go out and go to the malls and physical stores, even when the lockdown started lifting during the first phase or during the first wave. And online during that period of time actually really took us through, and most of the retailers. I remember that our sale from online space till about December last year was contributing to almost about 40% of our total sale.
Wow.
Despite the fact that we are predominantly a physical store brand. However, when we saw, let's say around January, February, March, when COVID scare went away, lot of customers started coming back to the stores, and there was a sudden jump in the physical store sale.
Correct.
Again, around April, we saw the second wave, and the customers again withdrew. However, this time, a type of COVID fatigue had set in the minds of retailers as well as the customers.
Correct.
The customers remained indoors only during that period of 2 to 3 months when the lockdown was there. But the moment lockdown lifted And of course, during that period of time, customers started consuming through online channels also. But the moment lockdown lifted, customers started coming back to the physical stores in hordes. Not only they wanted to buy physically, but at the same time what we realized is that the consumption itself has increased. This gave a lot of push to the online and offline both. So online, which had actually grown and had reached a certain level, it didn't happen that online started coming down once the lockdown lifted.
Wonderful.
Online remained and started further growing, and offline also took off, and it is growing wonderfully right now for online and offline both. What we realized that the customers now are not looking for either an online channel or an offline channel. They're looking for a seamless experience.
Beautiful.
They're looking for a multi-channel experience also. This is a great, wonderful thing, I would say, that has happened, and that has driven a lot of us retailers to rethink about their strategies in the long term and some tactics for the short term.
Fantastic, fantastic input, Rajesh. And Suraj, I would want you to build on this from here. And how have you seen the trends and the use of technology, and how has been your experience?
Yeah, I think while we all know the downside and impact of COVID on the country at large, I think from the context of a person running business, it was a very, very sharp wake-up call.
Yeah.
And I think what winning organizations do is not to waste the crisis and see what needs to be done on that. And I think we've largely approached it on 3-4 prongs. One is, of course, cash became very important, and therefore, and it was very unpredictable, as unpredictable as any event in our history. So one brought in a lot of cash focus in terms of how you reset your relationship with vendors and what needs to be done for the future. Most importantly, from a customer point of view, I think there was a lot of speculation till the time lockdown happening. Moment we unlocked, I think the trend started becoming very clear. And it's for the first time, I think, organizations had to deal with an unpredictability or there's an easy predictability to life and business prior to COVID. Suddenly, something called a sleepwear became very important. Athleisure was this thing on which everybody would speak about, do very little, and one had to move with ferocious speed on that. So I think a keen eye on customer trends, but keeping the context, keeping the past in view. Nobody just flips. These are just adjustments that's happened. We, for example, found that ethnic wear has probably had the slowest recovery among all our segments. And we did research and we understood the reasons why that is so. So it's not just about women shopping less, but also about women, the women who are buying Western wear being more open. So there's a lot of, one had to increase one's keenness on how closely one watched consumers. And in all of this, the process dimension that I think we had to deal with was agility.
True.
It was always a nice buzzword, but till the time you're hitting your numbers, till the time you're clocking your profits without any great pressure to change. But I think COVID taught us that, and Wave 2 taught us once more from a business side that, life can be as unpredictable as it gets. So we had built in strong systems in terms of how to be flexible in terms of what we wanted to order and not order. And I think it was a very interesting period from a management point of view. And I think we're slowly building some technology-enabled systems which will hopefully hold us well in the future. I do think a lot of us will have begun building strong systems, and over the next 1 year, which could hold us in good stead for the next several years. I'll just stop here for now and let the conversation carry on.
Sure. I very rightly said, Suraj, and I want to add to that, and I have seen this hands-on for about 100 brands. Earlier, before the pandemic, though the customer was always omni-channel, but the brands were not omni-channel. When I used to talk about 3 years back of omni-channel, it was like selling vitamins, ki haan, theek hai, baad mein aana types. But suddenly that whole word and the perception became a painkiller. When the interstate logistics got broken and still there was a possibility to fulfill from store, the stores were remaining fresh and there was no dead merchandise or old stock merchandise which was left. And also the great trend which I have seen is the mix of OSM and NSM has completely changed with the pandemic. And I just want to, now at this juncture, bring in Manish also. Manish, how have you seen the customer trends pre and post pandemic and the technology part?
See, if I look at it, I think there are three fundamental takeaways from the pandemic. And while Rajesh and Suraj have touched upon that, I think one fundamental change as in that we need to accept is that the consumer was already changing pre-pandemic also, as in you rightly pointed out. He wanted that seamless experience, he wanted that omni-channel experience, and we were probably found wanting in terms of not being able to change. And the pandemic was a wake-up call for all of us saying that, no, this has already happened, and since we have got this shock, we effectively, as in used a lot of technologies, we did a lot of interventions. Some of it, which I feel are not long-term, we'll have to build on those. Some of those, as in you said those processes right. Second fundamental thing that I feel that the pandemic has brought about is people talk about consumer changes, behavior changes in terms of moving towards athleisure and other related categories. I think the fundamental change that has happened in the Indian consumer is that today people have realized that they don't know if there is a tomorrow. So it's better if they have the money, you spend it today. So I think that's the biggest change that I see in the consumer, and especially that 35-year, 30-year-old consumer. And probably that's the reason that the buoyancy that we are seeing in the market today, I don't think that it's a buoyancy which is a revenge buying or something. I think that this is something which is going to continue because this is a fundamental change in the psyche of the consumer. The third thing that I look at it is from the store perspective. So while during the pandemic we realized that as in the store could be used as a location to fulfill orders, to do online sales, but what we need to fundamentally realize is, and that's what came to the forefront once the lockdown opened, is that the primary focus or the primary function of a store is to serve a consumer who's walking into that store. What we build around in terms of saying that we'll be able to fulfill orders from this store or we'll be able to do omni-channel are all secondary things. We need to do that, but our primary focus should be that how are we able to service that consumer better? How are we able to build those experiences from the store, which as in probably again as in is something which is going to differentiate online versus offline. But that's a very, very important thing because fundamentally in a country like India, as in there's no way that offline is going to go off. It's going to remain a primary basic channel. Online is going to grow, but we need to find ways and means wherein we integrate technology. How do we build our internal systems better to service the consumer?
Very rightly said. And actually, I want to add one point there that we used to study that there are three types of decisions: functional decision, economic decision, and emotional decision. Emotional decision could be as simple as, okay, my father used to apply a particular aftershave and, when I smell that, it reminds me of him. So I would tend to, or, could be other emotional decisions like, buying a Harley Davidson or Beetle or, anything like that. So I also feel that there is a mix changing in people where due to the sudden change in possibilities of continuity of life, people tending to take more emotional decision, take bolder bets, have increased. I've also seen that trend. I've seen that our new stock merchandise percentage has suddenly moved from, let's say, smaller double digits to middle double digits. And people are buying full price products, new stock merchandise, and it is moving online and on store, both put together. Sanjay, I want to bring you in at this point of time and, build on top of this and add your flavor that how you've seen the trends change and technology assisted.
So I think a lot of things that have been said over here also resonate with me and at Spiker. So without, kind of repeating it all over again, one very noticeable, I wouldn't say change, but it's more of a realization which I feel has happened, is that there was this whole space of online which India as a whole was aspiring for. So a lot of people probably were not able to do it because there was some kind of a block that they had. And these last 2 years have kind of created the necessary tools to kind of break that block that people had in their minds. And I'm speaking about it age agnostic, geography agnostic, So I think that has uh, dramatically changed the potential of online for India as a whole. But having said that, what has also happened in the last 2 years is that because people have been closeted inside their homes for such a long time, they have realized the romance of physical buying.
Yes.
You know, so there is a huge amount of, uh, it's something which is so great, which we had taken for granted.
Yeah.
You know, when we step out, we buy. We never realize that it's so important, it's so refreshing in that sense. But for the last 2 years, because people were not able to do it, and suddenly we found that, we are able to do it now. And that's the dramatic change which I found in people, because they have started realizing how important that was for us. And in India, unfortunately, outdoors is not so big. So outdoor for India is a mall or shopping. So that's the place where people will spend 5-6 hours of their family time together and stuff like that, which now they were bereft of. And I think people have come back with a vengeance on that. I still feel that a lot of people have still not moved out, and I still feel that there is a huge kind of inertia that people still have, a lot of people have, on actually moving out into the malls and shopping and doing a lot of things, and which is boding well for us, because that much more will happen as far as offline is concerned. But also I want to kind of bring in a word of caution over here, that, and this is entirely my opinion, that if I see it compared to 2019, nothing great has happened to the country as far as economy is concerned, which allows us to, revel or to celebrate this huge buying spree that people have finding themselves in. So I feel that there is a bit of a component of revenge buying still. It may not be revenge, it may be a wrong word, but it is probably a backlog which people are kind of covering up. And at some point of time, in some shape or form, it's kind of going to be a little more, it'll come down to its own, there would
Own
be,
level.
if water will find its own level.
Sure.
Let me put it that way. So I really feel that make hay while the sun shines. So next 4-5 months would be what it is. And with the last number that we have heard is that 24 lakh marriages are going to happen in this next 3 months. And if that's any indication, there's so much business for all of us, right? So another 4-5 months, I really don't see an issue. But at Spiker, I would move with a little bit of caution. And caution not to kind of plan things lesser than what I was doing in 2019, but not get so excited about what's happening today.
Correct.
And kind of chalk out plans which I may not be able to live up with.
Sure. Great point, Sanjay. And Narendra, I have savored the sweet dish, which is you, towards the last of the first round of questions. So why don't you put your color and your perspective in it?
I represent Samsonite, and Samsonite being the world's leading brand, mainly connected to the travel, which that was the most worst hit actually, as compared to my colleagues, because the moment the lockdown
Only
was
movie
over,
theaters were sitting with you.
yeah. After the lockdown also, we still continued to face challenges, because my customer base is purely travel and only travel. And the travel started to happen in two different ways. Like one was like trying to catch up with the good offering made by the hotels, and then rush in and catch up with those offers. But the serious traveler, the business traveler, the target audience, the one which we really cater to, they were still skeptical. And they remained skeptical, and therefore we are worst hit, if I have to claim that. And we actually enjoy 90% of the market share as far as the international travelers are concerned.
Correct.
Because being an international brand, you're more sure about your post-sale services and various other things. So we still continue to get hit by at least 30 to 40% of my target audience being not there. So what do we do? Even with technology and without technology, how do you get those customers? So we ended up doing something to do with the SKU rationalization. Earlier we used to offer lot many SKUs through one store, but then we predefined that what should be offered through which store and what is your target audience.
Okay,
And
based on
therefore,
location.
Based on the location and based on the data analytics team highlighting what is the price point we are catering to, and therefore not allowing customers to get downgraded in terms of the ASP.
Got it.
So that helped us to actually get a good jump in the ASP.
Yeah, because
And
the
therefore-
values were higher, so value
Yeah.
into volume will be
So
equal to.
therefore, with a lesser number of customers, we still ended up getting the target what we intended to. So
Fantastic.
this was another way to
No,
catch the
fantastic. And
numbers through the
also,
back door.
you touched upon a very important point, which is data and analytics.
Correct.
So,
You need the numbers to have and support you to take the right decision. Otherwise, you end up removing the SKUs which contribute to about 30% in anticipation that you will get those 70% upgraded to by 50% will be just a dream,
correct.
which
correct.
may not come true.
No, fantastic input.
so this
I
is-
want to, no, very, very important point. I actually want to now change the flow of the discussion a little bit. And I was asking the questions. And let me just open the discussion amongst all of you, and fastest finger first. So now the longevity of a brand is, beyond human life, and lifetime value of the customer is way much more. We've seen example brands, and just naming a few, Bata, 127-year-old brand, Levi's, 160-year-old brand, and likewise for all of you all as well. So pandemic aside, what happened, we weathered the storm. Looking into the future, the consumer has moved just from online to offline, or offline to online, both ways buying. It is here to stay. There is a cross-pollination of journeys between online and offline. Experiences, for example, there are marketplaces who don't have a store, but people say are buying experience wahan pe, and they stick to that marketplace. People subscribe and pay for a loyalty program. Could be called as Amazon Prime. So how are you seeing the trends change in the future? And when I say in the future, in a horizon of next 5 to 10 years. And what are the steps you're doing around that? So over to you.
Shall I take it? Thank you. So, Tapas, what I see is that, and I will have to take the pandemic once again in this. So, there were a lot of things that were happening pre-pandemic era. What pandemic has changed is that all those things have got a big flip. It has speeded up all of these things. First thing that I see, a significant change in the consumer's behavior, and I'm also a consumer, so I'm also talking about myself as a consumer there. Earlier, we used to go to, let's say, a physical store, or mainly for either shopping, or for going to a cinema, or F&B, or a mix of those things. What changed post-pandemic is that people have started going out for socialization. Shopping, F&B, and cinema, etc., they have become incidental. They are not the main purpose of driving you from your home to go to a mall or to a physical space. This has completely changed the entire scenario. Second, I would also like to say here that the consumption, which I touched upon earlier, slightly different from what Sanjay said. I think the consumption has actually gone up because of the pandemic. The customers have started understanding the need of enjoying the life here and now. In my view, and I'm very optimistic by nature also otherwise, so in my view, this demand that we see in the consumers is not a short-term demand. It's likely to stay for a longer period of time, and maybe will sustain in future also. What also happened, and now I'm coming to your specific points also, technology which was already happening in different parts of the world, and I'm not limiting it to India only, that again got a big flip. So earlier, as you rightly said, that about 3-4 years back, Omni was in a very nascent stages in India. But it got a big push, and I think most of the retailers now don't have an option but to adopt, or they have already adopted, omni-channel experience to the customers. What I see 5 years to 10 years from now in the digital space is that AI and machine learning, these two are likely to play a very important role in the retail space. Data analytics, yes, will come, but that I'm not very sure that how much it will help the physical store. So it could become a seamless interaction between the offline and the online, and that is where the data will play a role, which with the help of machine learning and artificial intelligence will give a bigger push to the entire retail. two big trends which are happening across, okay, one of them across the world, and the second is more specific to India. Customers earlier were aware of sustainability aspect, but because of pandemic, sustainability has become almost like a demand from the customers and the brand. Globally, across the world, almost all the brands, including Indian brands and international brands, have started thinking in terms of sustainability. They're investing a lot of time, money, and energy behind making their products sustainable, especially in the garments field or the let's say beauty space, where a lot of carbon footprint gets generated. So most brands across the world have started working towards that. And I see that 5 to 10 years from now, and I'm again picking up what you said, the brands will sustain only if they are caring for the environment.
Correct.
Third, and the last thing that I see is a major change that is happening or is likely to happen in India, especially in India, is the social compliance, which means compliance with the laws and regulations related to the workforce. In a country like India, where law is complied with most of the retail chains, like most of us we have, however, that social compliance is not given its due importance when you go to a small business house or remote areas, etc. But that is becoming almost like a norm. People have started demanding that. On the other hand, those who are supposed to comply with that law, they have realized that this is nothing less than their responsibility to comply with those laws. So what I see that 5 to 10 years from now, yes, digital space will be a great space. There will be seamless interaction between online, offline, and there could be some other channels also. It could be like, let's say, you're selling through video conferencing and those kind of things could also come.
Sure.
But sustainability is also likely to play a great role there.
100%.
From my perspective, as in terms of, while I completely subscribe to what Rajesh said, and in fact, I'm wearing a denim that, as compared to some 200 odd liters, just utilizes a cup of water, and that's our initiative on the whole sustainability side. We call it Wiser Wash. I think there are fundamental things which, from a retailer's or a brand perspective, are happening. I'll use a word which is used a lot nowadays in terms of saying what we are looking at in terms of what I call as a more of a 2 to 3 year horizon in terms of a single view of a consumer. I think that's what most of the retailers are and the brands are looking at. So today we have a scenario as in a Manish Kapoor or a Rajesh Jain as in interacts with us on a store as in that's Manish Kapoor one, and then the same person is interacting with us on a web store. That's another Manish Kapoor, and we are not able to correlate, is it the same person? I think when we are talking of single view of consumer, as in that's going to be one of the biggest aims for us as an organization and for a lot of retailers. It's easier said and done, as in when you think of it, you're talking of right from your POS systems to what sort of order management systems you use to what sort of technology platforms do you have in terms of your web stores. But fundamentally, the idea is that you utilize technology to start seeing your consumer as one. And my idea, as in a thought that I gave to my team, is that somebody comes to your store and you should be able to tell them, sir, this is what 3 shortlisted items you had in your basket when you were browsing last. Would you like to see them and shop them here at the store? So I think that's the vision that we have. This other important thing is that, as in once you are able to, as in get the single view of consumer, you'll have a lot of data. But then again, as in terms of, are you able to create single databases, what we call as data lakes? Then are you able to churn out data in terms of saying that this consumer, when he's shopping at a store, is his buying behavior different? Is he coming down to the web store just for discounts? Are we able to change it? I think that's where the future lies. It's what I call as it's digitization, but again, as in the next level of digitization would be in terms of how are you then able to utilize this data in terms of your manufacturing processes, your supply chain processes, in terms of your demand predictions. So effectively, as in how I see it, we were trying to, or as organizations, we were always flexible in terms of looking at as in changes and then being able to react to those. I think the bigger change now is that are we also being able to be nimble in terms of being able to adapt to those changes much faster?
And I'm actually tempted to add a point, hence please allow me to speak for a minute more. It's and it is very heartening to hear it from both of you, because the way, the power is actually in clienteling. If the person on the store, if the person, the first touch point with the customer is actually able to predict next best action based on the pattern of the consumer, and can deliver it to the customer, they in fact like it more, because जो एक चीज़ दिखाई दे रही है कि हम किसी को कुछ भी दे सकते हैं पर हम उसको टाइम नहीं देना चाहते. यदि आप जो मुझे पसंद है, जो मेरे जहन में जो मुझे है, वो यदि if you can give it to me, that's what it is. So very valid points. Anybody next?
So on AI and machine learning, just a small adjoinder, is that what it tells us is what's done well, right, or what's not done well. So Spiker being a fashion-forward brand, we rely more on gut and impulse of our people, rather than looking at data which will kind of throw out clones. So for something as core as Pepe is, I can still understand. But for us, where we churn out 400, 500 options every 6 months, and none of them get repeated the next time, I feel that you need to partake this whole thing in a measured way, because otherwise it's going to take a lot of ingenuity out of our people. So from our perspective at Spiker, and I have a small analogy, is like, back in those days when we didn't have mobile phones, every single person out here probably would remember 100 telephone numbers. And today it's impossible for us to remember any number unless it's your wives or your few friends, right? So that's what data does to us, or making it so easy does to us. So I feel by giving this access to the design teams, are we just taking away the edge? Is a question that I grapple with. And hence, for Spiker, it's very important. And we have always relied on our understanding of the markets, the tuning that we need to do to fix the product, to make it right for India as a consumer. And we've succeeded for the last 30 years. And probably we are the only brand who can say that 60 seasons, only fashion, we have been consistent. So somewhere I feel that there is a lot of human effort and human creativity which is going behind it. And so we need to kind of look at all these things in a manner where we don't take away that, because we are finally in a fashion business. And what's new is very important to us.
I'll probably just interject there. So I completely agree there with you, Sanjay. But I think, and I fundamentally believe, as in most of the times, even the consumer doesn't know as to what he wants. So we need to innovate. But at the same time, as long as you are able to, and 100%, as in terms of whether you look at, actually in terms of whatever you build, end of it, as in the data that you feed in, as in that's how the result is going to come. So in terms of the human element is also going to be very, very important, and especially for us, for people in fashion, wherein we need to, as in season on season, keep trying and giving out something new. Otherwise, as in how do we grow, how do we, as in get newer customers into our fold. But at the same time, if you are able to leverage data in terms of, and I'll give you a small example, as in terms of, let's say you have a particular price point, wherein during those discussions within the teams, they say, no, it doesn't work in my channel or this, that. And once you are able to show them with data that this is what you bought last year and this is how it has sold. So I think it's going to be a marriage. The human element is also going to be, it's going to remain very, very relevant for us, especially in the fashion industry.
मुझे लगता है कि वो technology will become a tool to power the creativity. वो assist मतलब true. It is. And at scale करने के लिए
not futuristic. I think that happens even today.
Even today,
technology. Correct. So have you ever wondered how is it possible that whenever a new trend comes, almost all the brands are implementing the same thing across the globe? That means there is some technology working somewhere. They're all related the way we guys are related. Similarly, the designers and the all those creative guys are also connected somewhere, that it's not possible that all of them come out with the same idea at the same time, that next to next season, a season after next, we will launch this. So this is technology that is working there. It helps wonders, I think, in all the areas. Now, having said that, I am also of a great believer in the thought that human intervention and human inspiration must always remain there, and that's likely to remain in the future also.
Correct. Suraj or Wherein?
I have a point just to add to. The data and the analytics part, it reduces the time what you require to put in to convert a customer from a what you call a window shopper to a real buyer. As very rightly pointed out by colleagues, that the data is what we get, that how many products you have browsed through, and then if you have just pointed out maybe 2 out of my 100 products, your time interaction goes down by many fold. So that definitely helps. But once again, I'm sold still upon with the idea that we keep the SKU, we keep the products which caters to the larger segment of my target audience, and my replenishment time, the cycle of ensuring that the products are always ready at the shelves, is the crux of the entire retailing offline. Online we do have, but definitely we try and keep it under control, because the brand being connected to only the elites and the high-end business travelers, top-end executives, we don't want to have an overexposure to the online. But the data and the technology definitely helps us to maintain minimize the timeline to interact and convert the customer to the sales.
I think it was an interesting point and counterpoint on gut versus data. My experience has been that we sometimes spend too much time on data analysis. And the other thought that came to mind was that sometimes when you sit and look at a lot of data and look at the analysis, you realize analysis and interpretation of data is one of the most qualitative tasks ever, as much as looking at design and discovering the new wash in a pair of denim. And the reason is that the context always changes, right? You are analyzing what happened in fashion. In these days, you got to go back to FY20, financial year 20, to imagine a normal season. And on top of that, you're trying to see what's going to happen in FY22, which is likely to be a dramatically different year than now. So therefore, I think in almost all data analysis, I think the role of interpretation, including some of the case studies in terms of AI and so on, one hears about Myntra's tool in which they can predict which colors and what kind of attributes sell. I think interpretation does have a large role to play. The way I've tended to look at it is what's the big problem a technology or an adoption is meant to solve. So I get a little lost when sometimes it comes across as data analysis tools for tool's sake. So in Pantaloon, we are trying something fairly ambitious in terms of an assortment planning tool. Assortment planning is, we all believe we do it, but beyond a certain level of complexity, with only Microsoft Excel as a tool, you can't do it. That's the reality. But if you talk to planners across organizations, they'll tell you they're doing it brilliantly well. And that's what I guess you have to feel as a proud professional. But if you take Pantaloon, we have external brands, private label, we have 6 lines of businesses, we have 100 categories, we have many tiers of cities, many types of stores, many sizes of stores. You know, without technology, you can't even start doing a good job of it. Of course, there are conventional, wisdom that exists. We work with partners who've been doing this for a long time across channel. That wisdom is always harnessed. But from a scientific point of view, from a point of view of optimizing, you need a tool. So we are in the implementation stage on that. And it's quite fascinating how even the people who are working with us tell us, this is what the numbers say, but remember the business decision is yours. Correct. So, and we are enjoying that process where our planners are overruling some parts of the tool. So one of the first few experiments, and 25% of what the tool has recommended, we have absorbed and accepted, saying, I think the tool is right. 75% we've rejected because we were working on FY20 data and the world has changed since then. And also, therefore, I see all of this as a journey. We've begun now. The real effect will not be for SS22 buying or 2022 buying. Once you take these decisions with the tool and once you implement it and as you learn, so this is now, you got to invest today for 3 years later. So that's a kind of, I think, time frame with which one needs to look at a technology intervention, which is why I think it's important we throw technology at a really big problem, because then the organizational bandwidth can kind of fall in place for that.
True. I'd like to share what also we are doing with the Arvind brands and with others. So what we do is that, of course, data lake, everybody, all of us have talked about, but so we'll build a data lake. On top of that, we'll build lenses also, patterns, that seeing the data, what is the pattern that is emerging out and what could be the next best action for the consumer. Because what next best action say, if you build the right promo, so you see what is the promo attach rate, otherwise we all have at least 1,000 plus SMSs which we have never read actually, and we will never read. So wo promo is also another thing which comes to, as Suraj you were talking about, the BI part. So we cross-pollinate different functional data together. For example, from what kind of orders are coming from what parts of the country, and how have you done the assortment planning. So that online orders, offline orders, and the next best action data lake, putting together builds a huge amount of knowledge base. Another thing which we are doing is, apart from marketplaces, we have an understanding of what kind of a user does how many returns, or frauds, or fakes returns, etc., etc. So to what kind of user, what kind of payment mechanism should be offered, or a predictable, precise delivery can be offered. I also feel that this time has been a great time of collaboration, where different functions, different partners, different sides of business have collaborated to come up with great ideas. So do you think of, and this is the last question, fastest fingers first, an example of collaboration of technology, human data that you see that is taking could be logistics, could be, retail operations together, is taking the retail operations further, and could be a trend in the future, or could bring a huge amount of benefits in the operations. Anything, any trend that you can spot?
So basically, as in terms of look at it, and I'll give you certain examples, as in terms of how we are looking at certain data that, as in which we started utilizing, as in especially during the last 6 to 9 months, is that. So if you are able to get, let's say, in terms of you start segregating data in terms of saying what sort of orders are you getting from certain pin codes.
Correct.
Okay. When you're planning your store expansion, as in then it helps you in terms of saying that there is X sort of a demand and you don't have a particular store in the vicinity, and probably it makes sense. Previously it was more led from in terms of saying that there is a particular catchment and a competitor is there. So I think that's coming in. Secondly, what is happening is in a lot of places, the fundamental design of a store, and especially as in terms of when I look at high street stores, we are changing. So if we see that, as in that this particular store, we are seeing that, let's say 70% business is going to come from a walk-in consumer and 30% business is coming from omni-channel. We are designing those stores differently. So we have a bigger stock space. We are keeping a computer inside in terms of scanning and billing and those sort of systems. So I think that's where the technology intervention is coming in. I think the other bigger change is that during the pandemic, which we saw and which we are continuing, is that in terms of collaboration, so you have this Dunzos and the VFast of the world. We have utilized, when we did conversational commerce, and that contributes to 2-3% of our business today, even in the smaller cities, is that we started utilizing their services in terms of promising a 2-hour delivery to the consumer.
Correct.
So I think those are, as in examples, wherein we've started looking at data differently, collaborating with newer partners. So those are, as in few examples that I could cite.
Great. Anybody else, or I'll take a question, a couple of questions from the audience. Rajesh ji, please add to it.
we'll give you just couple of instances where technology has really helped us take some decisions. One is in the CRM space. So earlier when we had a CRM space, it was only meant for physical stores, but now we have enabled it for online also for the last, I think, almost about more than a year or so. So now we have a seamless connectivity for our CRM program, online as well as offline. So that helps us a lot in reaching out to the relevant customers. Second, a very recent example I'll give you. Lacoste is a brand we don't expand very fast because there is a certain perception of the brand, there is a certain space in which the brand works.
Correct.
What really helped us in terms of technology very recently is that we realized that in the top 10 cities in the country where the customers are shopping online from our own website, we are not present in 2 of the cities.
Okay.
That really helped us take a decision, and we have recently started our fit outs in one of those cities.
Beautiful.
Where we were getting a lot of customers who are online, but we were not physically present. So it really helped us in collaborating the 2 data and take that kind of a decision.
Great. I have a couple of minutes, so in case there are any questions from the audience, and please ask your question. If somebody can deliver a mic in the audience. Why don't you take this one?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have just a 45-second observation, and I just want reaction from the panel, because you can never get a panel like this sitting here. Okay, you can hear me now. Okay. So this is my observation, and I want a reaction. Okay. I'm going to take 45 seconds, starts now. 32 years ago, I was working in a store in the US. छोटा सा स्टोर था, बेड बैथ एंड बियॉन्ड करके. उनके दो स्टोर थे उनके. जूइश ओनर थे. कोई हमारे पास टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं थी. Even at that point of time, even in the US, nothing was in terms of systems and processes and databases. नहीं था. I'm talking about 80s. Okay. तो कोई कस्टमर आता, उसको कोई कंफर्टर लेना है एक किसी बैमसटा एक ब्रांड का, और उसके पास उसको मीडियम चाहिए, हमारे पास नहीं है. तो हमारा एक और स्टोर था, लेकिन हम इतने कंप्यूटर भी नहीं थे. वी वुड कॉल अप द कस्टमर, वी वुड कॉल अप द अदर स्टोर एंड फाइंड आउट अगर वहाँ वो साइज़ है, और कस्टमर को बोलते तुम यहीं पे रिंग कर लो, यू पेड at the till right here, and we will deliver it to you free of charge. Okay. Now fast forward 2021 in India. मैंने एक brand है, I won't say the name of the brand, but the brand CEO is also here right now. मैं कुछ खरीदने के लिए गया. मेरे साइज़ की जो चीज़ चाहिए थी मेरे को, वो नहीं मिली. वहाँ थी नहीं, जो मुझे पसंद आया उसकी साइज़ नहीं था. तो द सेल्स पीपल ओवर दे वर लाइक, सर नहीं है, क्या करें. तो मैंने बोला यार देखो यार स्टॉक में पीछे हो कहीं. बोला क्या, नहीं जी नहीं. मैंने बोला यार तुम्हारे 50 स्टोर्स हैं यार, तो कांट यू चेक. सो आई सेड व्हाई डोंट यू गो, open up your register, have a look at the inventory, see which store has that, how difficult it is to see an SKU, and see all you need in SKU is कि बाकी के स्टोर में इन्वेंटरी है. वो कहता है ऐसा तो हम करते नहीं हैं, चलो आप बोल रहे हैं हम करते हैं. उसने चेक किया, बोला कि अरे हाँ वो एम्बियंस में एक है. तो मैं बोला यार ऐसा है, वो आप मेरे लिए दूर पड़ेगा क्या, मैं आप इधर भिजवा देंगे मेरे को क्या. तो मैं इधर से पिक कर लूँगा, मैं कल पिक कर लूँगा, पैसे मैं अभी दे. नहीं सर ये नहीं हो सकता, आपको वहीं जाना पड़ेगा. सी व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल यू हियर इज, use technology to touch hearts, not the other way around. All I see here is, I don't see one customer's, where you say you really, really went out of your way and you made a space, the brand has made a space for itself in that customer's heart. At the end of the day, the technology, jab tak aap touch nahi karenge hearts, you will not be able to have a sustainable customer for a lifelong customer. I think we're putting too much of stress. I liked when Rajesh ji, my friend from Lacoste, he mentioned the human interaction बहुत ज़रूरी है. I like your comments on it.
Sure. Sure. Sir, you want to add, Rajesh?
See, so my dear friend, I would like to first of all tell you, I think we are all in the evolving stages. The experience that you've had in whatever store it was and whatever brand it was might have been a one-off experience where they might not have implemented or used the technology to the extent it is required. Heart of a retailer is always for customer delight only. I think most of us, actually all of us and all the other retailers, I am of the firm belief, our aim is customer delight, not selling the product. Selling the product is only a one-time sell. If we bring customer delight, the customer will keep on repeating. They will keep on visiting us again and again, offline and online, whatever way. But this is a given fact that if you have had a bad experience, maybe that brand, that a store was in evolving stages. The circumstances could be different, but I can assure you that most of the retailers in India are working towards achieving that omni-channel presence also, where you place the order at one place, and if you don't find your size or a color or something, then that can be taken and it can be delivered to your home very easily.
So
This is anyway evolving.
Very
This
true.
is, this
And
is
sorry to cut you short because I was just reminded time's up and it is showing in red now. So this is a common use case, just to add, called Save the Sale Endless Aisle, in which now they don't check it in the tills also on the POS. They have a mobile app and they don't even check the SKU number, just look at the product. And it's a complete, the store doesn't have to send it to the store, they send it to your home. We process at least on a bad day, more than 10,000 orders like this every day. So the world, as you felt, touch hearts, they have evolved and technology has enabled, and they are trying their best to touch hearts, and you've said the right point, that touch hearts. I am being told again and again that time's up and it is flashing in red now. So I first of all want to extremely thank, and I couldn't agree with you more, that it's very difficult to get such an esteemed panel. I thank all the panelists for taking out time and sharing their opinion. And I also thank all the audience for listening to us patiently. Thank you very much.